Pompeo levels Senate Dems after disclosing Obama's Russian involvement by US4Trump.com. The first female senator, Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire, visited Syria, and now she's an expert on foreign relations as she questions Pompeo during the Foreign Relations Committee. Jean's cool with everything as long as the credit for the excellent foreign relations of the Trump administration are credited to Obama. Furthermore, Jean would like Pompeo to tell her exactly what President Trump and Vladimir Putin spoke about during their one-on-one meeting in Helsinki, Finland. Moreover, to make her point, Jean, or whatever her name is, begins quoting Russian tabloids, then says it's the ministry, as if that supports why she needs to know. Are you kidding me? They're questioning what was taking place at the one-on-one meeting so quickly? In a hilarious exchange, Pompeo tells her to support this administration and not the previous administration's policy. Specifically, he tells her not to listen to Russia. Pompeo was 100% a gentleman with her. As he states, I will humbly suggest to you that you should have more confidence in statements from General Votel than the Russian Ministry of Defense. And Shaheen then switches gears and begins talking about her trip to Syria and how she believes America needs basically to follow Obama's policy. Yeah, that's it. However, begins reciting everything that the Trump administration is doing. Isn't that crazy? Then Pompeo, as kindly as he can, says the previous administration is the one who enabled Russia to have the capacity that they have in Syria today. You see, they're outing themselves. Like, really? She gets a little hot under the collar for being busted and describes Trump's administration policy in a strange reversal. Let's take a listen to this. It was Obama who allowed Russians to do this. Really? They're still on Syria, the deep state? Yeah, they never give up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you, Assistant Secretary Mitchell, and our charge in Turkey, Phil Kosnet, for your hard work and coordination on the efforts to release Pastor Brunson. As you pointed out, his move from prison to house arrest is a positive development. Obviously, we have a lot more work to do in terms...
Yeah, they released a pastor from Turkey, I think. Yeah, from Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. That he was in there for about like 21 months or something, in case you guys didn't know.
Getting him back to the United States and also pressing the Turkish government to...
from Turkey. Yeah, this happened under Obama's watch or Trump's watch? Let's just be honest about it, right?
The other Americans that they're holding, but it is a positive step, and thank you for that. I am concerned, Mr. Secretary, because it's been 1 week since, a little over a week, since the Helsinki meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. And yet, other than the brief description you just gave us, we don't really know what was discussed in that meeting. We've heard DNA...
And why should you know what's discussed in that meeting? It was a closed-door meeting. You have no business knowing.
Coates, General Votel, and a number of State Department officials, including those who were present in last week's committee meeting on Iran, indicate that they still don't have a full understanding of what was discussed in that meeting. And we're seeing almost daily attempts by the Kremlin to take advantage of this opportunity as they release their own readouts of the conversation.
And she's a Democrat for sure. That's why she's pushing this narrative, because the Democrats are not comfortable with not having an all-out war break out, a confrontation, so to speak. I mean, really? You see these, it is sickening at this point. It actually is sickening. it is really sickening what America has let become at this point because of these kind of people, you know?
And broadcast news of various agreements that they say were reached in that meeting. So for me, that's why I'm so concerned and why I want to know exactly what was agreed to in that meeting. On
I wouldn't
Syria,
tell you.
President Trump said at his joint news conference that the two leaders discussed Syria at length. The Russian Ministry of Defense has indicated that the two leaders agreed to military cooperation in Syria. Did they do that?
Senator, the United States policy with respect to deconfliction with Russia has not changed. I will defer to the Department of Defense for details around that, but I can tell you that the policy that was in place with respect to their efforts to keep American pilots safe and keep American forces safe in Syria, that policy has not changed.
Do you know if they discussed that policy? If they discussed...
I do know that they discussed Syria. They absolutely discussed Syria. The focus of that discussion, I think President Trump has shared this, was an effort to find a political resolution there and to get the displaced persons the opportunity to return to Syria. And I think the President's talked about one more item, so as the President shared it, I feel like I can as well. I think he also talked about America's continued commitment to ensure that Israel was secure from threats in Syria as well, and that topic was discussed by them as well. I think the President has previously shared that.
Do you know if there was any sort of downgrading of our U.S. presence in in Syria that was discussed?
Senator, there's been no change in U.S. policy with respect to our activities in Syria.
I understand, but that's not exactly the question.
Senator, it's what matters. It's what matters. What matters is what President Trump has directed us to do following his meeting with Vladimir Putin. It's what he has told his senior leadership team to do, and how he wants us to deploy his foreign policy strategy.
And do you know if the frozen stabilization funds for Syria, the $200 million, was that ever discussed?
So we are still working to review that policy. That's a State Department policy. We are still working to review it. The policy was the same the day before as it was the day after the President's meeting with Vladimir Putin.
And do you know if Iran was referenced in the context of Syria in their discussions?
So again, it's not for me to disclose the contents of those conversations. I can tell you that each time I've spoken with President Trump, both before Helsinki summit and after, Iran has been at a central point that we have focused on with respect to U.S. policy in Syria. I'm confident will remain so.
So, in an interview, General Votel was asked about whether a deal had been made on Syria between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. And he said, as you indicated, that he had received no instructions to change what he's doing. And he went further on to say, and I quote, "I would want to make sure that this isn't something that we stepped into lightly. I'm not recommending that, and that would be a pretty big step at this point." In response to his comments, the Russian Ministry of Defense put out a statement and also posted on social media. And again, I'm quoting the Russian media. They say, with his statements, General Votel not only discredited the official position of his Supreme Commander-in-Chief, but also exacerbated the illegality under international law and U.S. law of the military presence of American servicemen in Syria. Can you tell me what our response has been to the Russian Ministry of Defense with respect to this statement?
Senator, my guess the response would be most appropriately from the Department of Defense and not from the Department of State, but I will humbly suggest to you that you ought to have more confidence in statements from General Votel than the Russian Ministry of Defense.
I do have more confidence in General Votel's statement. That's why I'm raising this question, because it seems to me that our response to the Russian Ministry of Defense ought to be very strong to say they have nothing to say about what our generals are doing in Syria. That's not their business, that's our business. And I would hope that that's a point that we make very strongly. I had the opportunity to visit Syria a little over 2 weeks ago, and I was very impressed with the work that our military has been doing in northeast Syria along the Turkish border. I was very impressed with the work of the Syrian Democratic Forces, and what I heard over and over again, both from the men and women who were serving and from the civilians, Syrian civilians on the ground, was, please don't leave us here to the fate of either Assad or the Russians or other forces that
A total lie. A total lie.
may come into that part of Syria. And please, just a little bit in help for reconstruction efforts would go a very long way. That
Yeah, we got to reconstruct over here, but did you hear their don't leave us? They want them out. They want America out. Russia cleaned it up over there. I'm not saying that they were in coordination with Trump, but Russia went in before even Trump got into office. Please. And they say this crap with a straight face, but again, they're Democrats, right?
part of Syria has stabilized. They are into reconstruction. They are sending back people who have been displaced to their homes. And it would be...
That goes against your agenda, right? Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
I believe a real terrible reversal of policy for us to leave those folks after what we've done and to turn them over to the Russians or to Assad's forces.
Senator, if I might, just so the facts are clear, the previous administration is the one that enabled Russia to have the capacity that they have in Syria today.
I'm not defending the previous administration, Mr. Secretary. I want this administration to continue doing what's working.
Its policy, this administration's policy. You're advocating for the continuation of this administration's policy. I think that's important for everyone to understand.
That is very important to understand. Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent on Mike Pompeo's part. Excellent. Yeah, it is important to understand what this administration is doing, not the previous, right? Yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.